Hello, MavMind Collective, and welcome to another episode of the HypnoSales Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of nested stories. So, stories in general are a very powerful hypnotic technique. It's also a best practice when it comes to any kind of communication. We typically, as humans, want to hear stories more than we want to hear someone drone on and on and on about some idea they have or some technical thing that they want to teach us something. And we don't want to hear that. We want to hear a story instead. And the reason is because at a subconscious level, we want to identify with whatever the person is telling, the story that the person is telling. We want to identify with it. We want to associate with it in our subconscious. And we want to know, more importantly, how the story ends. Because we know subconsciously that when we hear the ending of a story, we then can learn something from it. And that's how we grow, and that's how we mature. We listen to other people's stories and we mature ourselves and our mind and our skill sets and the way we think about things, and all aspects of our life advance and get better and better because of storytelling to each other. In fact, most cultures, ancient cultures, before we had written language, they would share all of their knowledge in the tribe through stories. And there usually was one person that was designated in the tribe to be the storyteller. So it was like a job to tell the stories, relay the stories to the next generation, and then they would have someone that was in that tribe that was their apprentice, and they would teach them how to tell the stories, and then that person would grow up and be the storyteller of the next generation of the tribe. So storytelling is a very deep ingrained part of our culture and part of our subconscious, and it's a best practice when it comes to communication skills. So we all do it, we all like to do it, and we love listening to stories, especially hearing the ending and learning from it. So that's the mechanism, and that's the reason why we like it. So that's why this particular technique is very effective, because it plays into that whole anticipation for the ending, and then you use that in order to create a nice little space, a little compartment, open up a little space in the subconscious to plant the seed of some positive statement or command that you want to put in there. Similar to the other video I've shared in the past on embedded commands. It's a sort of a form of embedding a command, but doing it in a slightly different way, a little bit more advanced way too. So I'm not going to say this is the simple technique. This is a very advanced technique. You have to think this through, but you can use it to your advantage. And I've done it before, and it's actually pretty effective, more effective than you can imagine if you do it right. So the idea is that I'm going to start telling a story. Okay, so I have on the whiteboard here, I have this sequence here. So I'm going to start telling the story, and I'm going to start telling story number one. And as I'm telling story number one, I'm going to get to a certain part of the story where I create a little mystery, and I'm about to reveal the answer, or resolve the mystery of the story and make my point of that story. Okay, and right before I do that, I break and I stop and I say, before I finish telling you that story, let me just remind you of this other story really quick there's this other story I want to tell you, and it's story number two. So I start a new story, and it's like nested, right? I start story one, and then I don't finish, and I wait till the right point, and then I break. I start telling story number two, and then as I'm going along there, I'm getting almost to a point, I'm about to reveal the ending of that story, and then I break again. I break a second time, and I start telling a third story. And I start telling that story, and you guessed it, I get to the point when I almost reveal what I'm going to make that point of that third story, and I break. And then the fourth thing I do here is I make a positive statement, or I put a command out there. I just make a very direct command at that point, right in the middle of these three nested stories that I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished them. I put the positive statement or command that I want my prospect or client or whoever I'm telling this nested story to, I want them to get it into the subconscious. And so I do that, and then when I'm done making that statement or putting that command out there directly to them, then I finish the story number three, and I kind of back my way out of it, right? I finish telling and I give the punchline, I make the point of story number 3, then I make the point of story number 2, and then I finally end with making the point of the very first story that I started. So it's sort of like a shell, like an outline, a shell, and inside like a babushka doll. If you've ever seen the babushka dolls where you take one doll and you take a doll out. So what I'm doing is I'm opening the babushka dolls, and then when I get to the third one, I show the inside is a positive statement. Then I put the heads back on and put the dolls inside each other, and I kind of come back out and conclude it with story number 1. Start with number 1, then I start number 2, then I start number 3. I give a positive statement, finish number 3, finish number 2, back my way back out of it. So sort of like kind of getting deep into it and then unraveling it back out, unrolling myself back out of it. You can think of it like that. So what this does is it basically creates an anticipation for each of these stories. And by the time I get to the third one and I haven't resolved any of these yet, the subconscious gets kind of worn down to where it's like it's hanging, it's cliffhanger, and it's 3 levels deep, and it's like, are you going to finish these stories? And it's on the verge of almost being frustrated in some cases if you do it too long. The trick is not to do it too long, because you will frustrate someone if you. That's why this is an advanced technique. You have to know exactly, how make these really quick, but nest them very quickly. And when you get to this point, then they're ready to receive it. It goes right into the subconscious, because they're not able to defend against, decide whether they want to really listen to this command or not, or this positive statement or not. They'll just accept it just as you say it directly, right to them, because they have no other place for it to go. You've carved this nice little space by going in 3 levels. You've carved a little space for it into the subconscious, and the seed goes right into the subconscious. This nice little statement, positive statement, goes right in, and then as you back your way out, it pays them off, and then they resolve, and then they're like, "Ooh, oh, that's awesome," and they understand what you meant by starting these 3 stories. You end the 3 stories, and they don't even remember the statement right here. This gets buried inside the babushka dolls. They don't even know. It's deep into the subconscious, and it's a very, very advanced technique to basically get that idea in there before they know it, before they realize it. And then you conclude with these stories, and then they're thinking about the ending of these stories and the point you were making, and they don't even think about this one at all. So that's how the technique works. And like I said, it's very advanced, and you do have to kind of plan this out if you're going to use this to plant that seed. And so I can give you an example right now. I'll just start by telling a story. Usually I tell a story that's happened to me. Each of these stories are things that happened to me, or something that's very personal to me, so I can remember how the stories start and how they end. Because it's, like I said, it's very important that you do it in order and then reverse your way back out after you've put your statement in here. So let's say that someone is wanting to evaluate my product. They're wanting to do a POC with my product. And I want to make sure that the statement I want to make is that they're going to have a positive experience, and they're going to really find value in our POC when they're done. I want to plant that seed that's going to happen. I want to put that into their mind. They're going to really like and be finding a lot of value in our product versus other people's products they might be evaluating. Okay, so that's what I want. That's the positive outcome. As long as it's positive, it'll work. You don't want to put a negative. Remember, the subconscious doesn't really latch on to anything negative, but positive, beneficial statements, they'll take it in if it's positive and beneficial to it whenever it receives it. If it feels it's beneficial, it'll accept it and take it in. Any of us will, if it's positive and beneficial to us. So I want to make sure it's phrased positively. So here's an example that I might use. So I was driving the other day, just down the road. I was driving to the store, and I thought about you, and I thought about this whole POC effort, this idea that you want to evaluate our product. And I passed by the store, and when I saw the title of the store, I remembered, wow, I've got to remember to ask you this question. And because the sign on the store actually triggered my mind to remember to tell you, because I'd forgotten so far, and I still had forgotten, even till right now I haven't asked you this question, but I'm going to need to ask you this question. But I just thought it was interesting when I saw the title of the store. It instantly made me think about this question that I need to ask you. And before I tell you what that sign said, I have to also share with you that other customers I've worked with recently, they've also evaluated my product. And usually, like you, they want to do a 30-day evaluation, and they want to go down this path of getting different resources from your side and our side involved. But when I've worked with other customers in the past, what I found is that there's actually a better path we can take, a better way we can go with this That's not the 30-day evaluation. And I've used it effectively with my other clients and customers recently, and I kind of want to suggest it to you. I'm thinking that just like I've done it with them, I want to suggest this alternative way to go about it with you. I'm not sure how you're going to take it, but I'm thinking that I probably want to share it with you and maybe ask if it's something you'd be willing to do and maybe suggest it. But before I tell you what that alternative is, I just have to tell you one other thing. When I was growing up, my mom used to share different phrases with me and sayings, and she would bring back stories. She would tell me of her childhood and things she had learned. And even though now I'm older, I don't remember a lot of those phrases and sayings, except for one. There's a particular phrase that she would say all the time that's always stuck with me. And I've always kept it with me this whole time. And I always use it to remind me of what's really important. Before I share with you what that statement that she shared with me, that I keep with me and always reminds me of what's important, I just want to make sure that when you evaluate our product, you're going to have the best time evaluating it. You're going to have so much value. You're going to see value in our product. As you evaluate it, you're going to see value and it's going to stick with you, and you're going to really feel positive about our product versus anyone else's product. And so my mom used to say, life's too short. She'd say, life's too short, and you should always be choosing the path of least resistance and getting to the point, because before you know it, life's over. So don't dilly-dally, don't waste time. Always take the fastest path, the shortest path to your goal of where you want to go. And that's why I want to tell you about this path that I work with these other customers. The path they always want to take, instead of a 30-day evaluation trial period, they always want to do a 2-day workshop, because we can. Now, most people don't know we can do that, but we can totally deliver our workshop in 2 days, and you can make a decision, a very valid decision, on whether you want to go with our product or not within those 2 days. So it saves all the time of doing a whole drawn out 30-day evaluation. We do 2 days. So I'm wondering if you're really open to that, and I'm hoping that you'll want to do that. And so that sign that I saw when I drove past that store that I started this whole story with, I was telling you about, it said UPS store. And when I saw UPS, I remembered I needed to ask you what your address is, because I need to send you this card, a very special card. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm going to send it to you. And when you get it, all I want you to do is text me on my phone that you got it. Okay? Can you do that? So I need your address as soon as you can send it to me. Okay? Okay. So seems like long drawn out. Do you remember what I told you in the middle? Well, if you were paying attention, you probably did. But if you notice, as you're listening to me tell the stories, I told you in that certain order, and I backed my way out. I made sure it backed way out. So if you do this and you kind of, do this to someone and kind of share this nested story, most of the time, maybe for a few minutes, they'll remember this. But like the next day, they're not going to remember you gave them that command, that they're going to find the most value in your product, in your evaluation. They're not going to remember that statement, but subconsciously it's going to be in there germinating, and they're going to grow it, and it's going to become something that either they identify with or they don't. And if they don't identify with it, then that means they've already decided to go with another product. You can't make someone go with your product or make a decision for buying your product or service, but you can use this technique. It's very advanced, but you can use it to influence them by embedding that command, that positive statement, into their subconscious as you go along. And I don't know if you noticed, but as I was telling these stories, I also incorporated some other hypnotic language as well. And I'm wondering if you noticed that as I was going through. Maybe you might need to go back and rewind and listen to me tell that story again and see if you can pick out, as an exercise, pick out some of the other techniques that I used when I told other aspects of those stories that I shared in other previous videos, just to see how good are you at hypnosales so far. Thank you for watching. I know you find value in these videos, didn't you? So if you, like me, are in a customer-facing role, I'm wondering if you want to watch another video now designed to help you get better at what you do every day. Or not. You don't have to watch another video if you don't want to.